Good morning. My name is Nina Hentz, and I'm your worship associate this morning. Welcome to those of you who are here with us in person at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke. We extend a special welcome if you're joining us for the first time. We also say welcome to those who are joining us on YouTube. Our minister is the Reverend Walter LaFleur. He is in the pulpit today, and the name of his sermon this morning is From Whence We Come. If you'll take just a quick minute to check your phone, make sure it's on silent. I know I had to check mine a little bit ago. I was actually going to wear a cute little sundress today, but Mother Nature had a different idea for this. Our words of welcome are whoever you are, whomever you love, however you express your identity, whatever your situation in life, whatever your experience of the holy. As you come seeking love, your presence here is a gift. Whether you are filled with sadness, overflowing with joy, needing to be alone with yourself, or eager to engage with others, all who welcome all are welcome here. Walker?
Wow, all who welcome all are welcome here. What a good reason to pledge. I'm here just to remind you, update, we're at 198,000 against our 250,000 goal. We have 90 pledges in. We got 9 new pledges. And we're going to celebrate next week with hors d'oeuvres after the service. Erica Joyner reminds me that you'll be able to enjoy the refreshments and roll right into the poetry celebration at 2 o'clock. So all of this is working very well. And now, very much thanks to Susie Newton and Judy Nelson for creative input and to Carrie for production. We have a UUCR kicking video for you.
It's so easy to make a pledge. 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 It's so easy, it's so easy, it's so easy. It's so easy, it's so easy, it's so It's so easy, it's so easy, it's so It's so easy to make a pledge. 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 I don't think that can be improved upon. No,
Good morning, people. Let me ring the bell 7 times in honor of our Unitarian Universalist 7 principles. The words of our covenant should be over my head. We commit to supporting each other with respect and direct communications as we work in community to explore spiritual growth and to be a force for good in the world.
streams. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the spirit of love. We are mothers of courage and mothers of love. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We are sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe. We are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe. A morning star rises and sings. Each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings. Each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings. Each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings. Each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe.
Motherhood is magical. It grants you the power to fall in love with someone before ever meeting them. It gives you amazing instincts to look after your cubs. It fuels you in ways you can't explain to keep you going, no matter how exhausted you are. And it expands your heart. It fills it with more love than you have ever felt before. Those words come from quotes about a mother's love for her children, pulled together by Allison Banfield. Our chalice lighting words. Life does not come with a manual, it comes with a mother.
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, O Spirit of light. I'd like to invite all the kids up who would like to come up and hear the story that Jessie has today. You can see the pictures if you're up close. Y'all come on up. And if you're an adult and you just want to move closer, that's acceptable. Today we're reading a story about an unexpected mama. It's called Pup and Bear, and it was written by Kate Banks and Nauko Stoop. Whoosh! When the great gray owl swooped down, screeching, whoo! The Arctic wolves knew that the big freeze was on its way. They took shelter in a snowdrift, and they listened to the fierce wind holler and roar. They watched the snow blow in spirals, wrapping the world in a fluffy white coat. What do you think that coat was made out of? Well, they had fur coats, but I think the world's coat was made out of snow. Yeah. But then the wind's bitter cold breath turned warm and the sun appeared. The big melt came, and one lone pup found itself on a sheet of ice spinning out to sea. Oh no, gotta turn that page fast. The pup slid into the water. He swam and he swam. When he reached land, he burrowed into a snowbank. He was tired and he wanted his mother. The pup closed his eyes and fell asleep, listening to the throb of silence across the still landscape. He woke to the feel of a cold nose against his fur. The smell was familiar. It was polar bear. "You're not my mother," said the pup, flattening his ears against his head. "I'm not your mother," said the polar bear, "but I can cuddle you and keep you safe." The pup was shy and frightened. "Aren't you going to eat me?" he asked. "Polar bears eat wolves." "Not this one," said the polar bear, shaking her head. "Climb on my back, and I will take you to my den." The pup stretched a paw forward cautiously. Then he climbed onto the polar bear's back, and they crossed the tundra under the watchful eyes of a trio of baby puffins learning how to fly. Back at the den, the polar bear licked and cleaned the pup. "I'm not your mother," she said, "but I can feed you and keep you warm." The next day, they set off across the wintry tundra. When they spotted a walrus with long, sharp tusks, the polar bear bellowed and chuffed. Can you guys bellow like a polar bear? Can you roar? Ooh, well done. She did that to protect that baby wolf. "Where are we going?" asked the pup as they neared the water. "I'm not your mother," said the polar bear, "but I can show you where to catch a fish." They passed a snow goose perched on a nest of eggs. They sniffed the trail of a seal as he tried to outsmart them. And they stopped at the water's edge where the fish and the lemmings came and went in the wondrous wheel of life. The sun shone down on the crisp, crackling snow, and the polar bear rolled into a snowbank. "Come on," she said to the pup. "I'm not your mother, but I can play with you." They're rolling down that hill. But when the pup tugged too hard at the polar bear's fur, the bear growled. "I'm not your mother," she said, "but I can scold you." Then she nuzzled the pup and tickled his tummy. Tired at last, the pup curled up against the bear, and they napped, listening to the wind whimper and sigh. The earth turned round, and the big freeze came, followed by another big melt, until at last the polar bear nudged the wolf, who wasn't a pup any longer. "I'm not your mother," she said, "but I know it's time for you to go." She nuzzled the wolf one last time, and the wolf nuzzled her back. Then he walked out into the wide world. The wolf howled to the midnight sun, which glowed on the horizon where day ended and night began, and he was answered by the cry of another wolf. Soon, he was leading a pack of his own across the frozen tundra. Then one day, the wolf came upon a polar bear cub huddled in a snowdrift. "Where's your mother?" asked the wolf, but the cub didn't know. The wolf sniffed the cub and rubbed its fur with a wet nose. "You're not my mother," said the cub, cowering. "I'm not your mother, but I can cuddle you and keep you warm." Are you guys ready to go and make some things? Oh, thank you. Y'all ready to go and make some stuff upstairs? Let's do it. Head upstairs. Wait, Amanda, you got it.
Today's readings address both the traditional and the non-traditional aspect of motherhood. The first one is called An Ode to Mother by D.C. Bianchino. When my eyes first opened, you were near. I knew that voice, it was you I could hear. You were pleased to see me and I felt your joy. And it wouldn't have mattered if I was a girl or a boy. And I felt your touch and I felt well inside. that I felt well inside. Now I could feel what I felt was your pride. And you fed me and bathed me and gave me your love, and you asked for nothing, just did it because. You taught me and caught me whenever I'd fall. You raised me and praised me, as I now recall. And when it was time, you said, I must go. But you did it for me, so wisdom I'd know. I am what I am, and I do what I am, what I do, not only because, but only because I had a mother like you. So I write this song for all that has passed between then and now, even though you don't ask. But I want you to know with words never said, taking it for granted, you just knew it instead. But I knew it was time when the sun woke me up and these words kept on flowing like an overfilled cup. Because here it is, that time in May, set aside for you when you gave in birth a life that now wants to say, thank you, I love you, happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, happy Mother's Day. Thank you, I love you for these words I can say. Thank you, I love you, you showed me the way. Thank you, I love you, happy Mother's Day. But not all mothers give birth. This is from Valerie Albarda. I am a mom, not in the biological sense, but in the heartfelt sense. I have borne no children, yet I love as any other mother. The tears I shed, whether of joy or sadness, are because I care. I share the triumphs, offer comfort in times of defeat, and impart words of wisdom when uncertainty arises. Along the way, I've made mistakes, but I also succeeded in getting it right. I may not have all the answers, but I hope to never leave you guessing, because I am a stepmother. I am a mother.
Today, we celebrate Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to mothers everywhere, but especially to those mothers who are here this morning. And if my mom was here this morning, she would have said, so have you decided not to wear stoles when you step into the pulpit, Walter? And I would sheepishly say, no, Mom, I'm sorry, I forgot. This is the day each year that we set aside especially for you who are mothers. It's right that we should honor you. Where would we be without you? If it were not for you, none of us, no matter our age, would be here to have this time to celebrate your presence. It's always been thus. Mothers are why we are here. Mothers help us to generate new, what's the word I'm looking for? A new generation. Today, we honor the fact that being a mother is a lifelong commitment, a lifelong relationship, a lifelong set of expectations. And there are expectations, always expectations. Expectations of self, expectations of others, some reasonable, some not, some met, some, perhaps many, unreasonable and unfulfilled expectations. I want to be clear. We do not honor mothers this day because they were perfect, or even because they were good mothers. We don't honor mothers today because they met their own hopes and their own expectations of motherhood, nor because they met the expectations of others, even those close by, related to them. nor do we celebrate them because they met the expectations that society places on mothers and motherhood. We honor you for the sacrifices that you've made over the years, the weight of the responsibility you've carried as a result of motherhood, carried well by some and not so well by some others, but carried by all mothers, no matter their circumstances. We honor you for your role in the continuation of the species. For where would we be without mothers? The image of Mother Nature comes to mind for me. Existence as we know it would not be possible without this thing we call nature. And not coincidentally, I'm convinced, we call Mother Nature. The term is so all-inclusive, yet it tends to have a positive connotation, a smoothing, comforting connotation. Birds, flowers, living things. Yet, that same Mother Nature is the source of barren land, earthquakes, floods, big things eating little things. All Mother Nature. All told, we could not exist without this thing we call Mother Nature. We accept the ups and downs of Mother Nature, the good days and the bad days, the fruit of the tree and the sand at the ocean's shore. We humans, too, exist across a wide spectrum, all part of this thing we call the human family, all requiring a mother for our own existence, whatever her nature, however we turn out. As the song says, and I think you'll hear it a little bit later, we're connected through our lineage. Now, before I go any further, I want to stop for a moment. I want to stop and say a few generic words about motherhood. 4 words in particular. Motherhood should be chosen. Motherhood should be chosen. It should be chosen by the bearer of a child. I, probably like you, horrified by the prospect that it just might be otherwise. In this land of the free, a land where we're free to refuse to get vaccinated. Folks, we've entered strange times, dare I say, scary times. So I encourage you to vote because it matters. Vote. Vote for as long as we have a democracy that allows it. Enough said on that subject, at least for now. But I'm sure there will be more words to be said as days go by. I count myself as one of the lucky ones. I grew up with a very special woman, a woman I called Mom. Most people called her Mrs. LaFleur. Some called her Marzella. She was well known in the city where I grew up. She was well respected. Intentionally and explicitly, she's taught all 6 of her kids to always behave with self-respect and to not accept anything other than respect in return. I learned to garden at my mother's knee. She had a flower garden in the front yard. She particularly loved roses and gladiolas. Many years later, I took plants from her yard, brought them to the house that I lived in, and planted them. And did the same thing. I took them from one house to another for 2 or 3 different houses. My house in Virginia is the first time I did not bring flowers that originated in Schenectady, New York, in my mother's garden. I don't think anyone would have guessed she never went beyond the 10th grade. She was smart, she was wise, she was caring, she was engaging. When I entered junior high school, she told me and my sister, me being the youngest, which she lovingly referred to as the caboose. She said, "I've raised all you kids. Now it's time for me to go to work." She said those words much to the chagrin of the provider in the family, my father. She opened a daycare center in our low-income housing development in which we lived. I still have a red LaFleur Daycare Center t-shirt. A few years later, she became the assistant, then the interim director of Schenectady's Community Action Program. My parents raised us to be good people. They would not have accepted it any other way. It wasn't until my 20s that I realized there was a term that captured the motivation of their behavior. They were raising us to be a credit to our race. It wasn't said, but it was an expectation. And we all understood it as a responsibility. And by any reasonable count, they succeeded. 5 of 6 children obtained graduate degrees. 4 had independent professional practices. 1 was a professor. But there were downsides. There were downsides to living into such expectations. For the first quarter of my life, I lived from the outside in, an outside-in orientation to life. That's to say that I was much more attuned to reacting to the external, living in response to that external in efforts to manage how I was seen. There was too little attention, too little awareness to my internal sense of self, my wants, my needs. But I did not know that because I was in the process of being successful. Some fortuitous life events helped me to recognize how I was engaging the world. In my late 20s, I became intentional in befriending self. 2 Black consultants who were brought into my work environment to work on issues of diversity. One was a psychiatrist and the other was a social worker. And I, as the only Black manager in that system, had an opportunity to do in-depth work with them. On and off, over maybe 2 years, I worked with them, spent time with them, studied with them. They helped me to decode my family's messages. They helped me to see I did not need to take responsibility for representing my race. That all I was really responsible for was being me, as best I could, as best I was able. Those few years helped to change my life. They helped me to better incorporate my mother's teachings and at the same time gain a better sense of self. I came away with a better understanding of who my mother was, what role she played in my family, what role she played in the larger community. Her wisdom, her determination, her commitment to make the world a better place was put into a larger context for me. I became more accepting of her gentle but consistent pushing. Her love for us was exceedingly clear. My mom had Alzheimer's and deteriorated over several years. To this day, one of the most painful experiences in my life was the first time she did not recognize her youngest son. It was as if a sword had been plunged into my chest. And without any need to push, I can find that sense, that experience, this moment. Today, I honor Marzella LaFleur, my mother, my mom, a woman who always wanted the best for me, who did her best to pass on her knowledge, and perhaps more importantly, to pass on her wisdom, her dream for me, her dream for our family, and her dream for the larger community she lived in. I'm grateful for whatever part of her I carry into the world. May she rest in peace, knowing she did good. Our memories and stories about our mothers are important. They're important, whoever we are as individuals, and they're important regardless of what our experiences have been. There's so many ways to be a mother, so many different experiences of motherhood, so many differences of being the child of a mother. And it should stand as a given. No one is perfect. No matter what they tell you, ain't nobody perfect. Nobody's perfect, no matter your experience, your memories of them are. There's a saying out there that says, everybody's got a story. Mother's got a story, kids got a story. So I've asked a few people to share their stories this morning. I've asked them to share their memories of their mother. Bill, You get to go first.
Neither of my parents finished high school. They married when my dad was 19. Are we live? So I was born when my mom was 17, and the last of my younger 4 sisters was born. Do you want me to go over there? You want me to come over?
Right, you don't have to spare stoves.
I'm surprised I put on a jacket. So I'll start from the top, just in case you didn't hear it. Neither one of my parents finished high school. They got married when my dad was 19 and my mom was 16. I was born when she was 17, and she had the last of my 4 younger sisters the month before she turned 25. She had very strong ideas about appearances, so much so that she curled all 4 girls' hair with bobby pins each night before a school day or before church. For me, it was everything from don't wipe your hands on your pants to never wear a brown belt with black shoes or vice versa. Good manners were very important. So we learned to say, yes, ma'am, no, sir, please and thank you, may I be excused. Don't chew with your mouth open. Don't interrupt. Hold the door open for a girl or a woman. Respect adults, especially teachers. The only time I ever got a spanking from the principal in elementary school, it was for something I didn't do. And when I told my mom, she said, well, you probably should have gotten a spanking for something you did. And you weren't, so you're even. We had chores around the house, which taught us to take responsibility for keeping it clean. And she taught me how to cook starting at age 12. She loved to sing and listen to music, and she taught us the importance of music. She became the business manager for one of the largest electrical contracting firms in Washington, D.C., and she retired as a vice president of the company. She accomplished all this without much help from an alcoholic husband. As far as I know, he never changed a diaper or fed any of his children a bottle or baby food. So the bottom line is that she instilled values that kept all 5 of us children from ever getting into serious trouble with the law, never going to jail, never having an addiction to alcohol or drugs. All 5 of us have worked hard, we've supported ourselves, we pay our taxes, and we work to improve our communities. Mom is the youngest of 6 sisters, and their mother and all her older sisters have had dementia. So our current relationship is great when she shares stories of old times, even the stories we've heard umpty-ump times before. But it's not so good when she can't remember when we were together or who came to visit just last week.
Kirk, where are you?
Good morning, everyone. When Walter asked me to do this, and I said this to him this morning, that it's easier to write a 20-minute sermon than it is to talk about my mother in 2 minutes. But I'll do my best here. My mother sometimes was an extremely kind and generous person. There were other times when she was not so kind and was very, very difficult. She grew up in Toledo, Ohio. Her parents, her mother came over from a part of Poland, and I'm not sure whether it's part of Germany or part of Poland now, but she came over when she was young just to visit. And then the war broke out in Germany, and she never went back. She was part of sort of a landed gentry, if you would, from what I understand. But all of her life, she was a seamstress for a department store. And my mother's father was a Russian, Polish socialist, a very gruff kind of guy who worked in the street crews, repairing streets and that sort of thing, and smoked a pipe. Extremely intellectual, but not a easy person to be around. But my mother was the only child, so she grew up in that environment. But she had this ambition, I think, early on, that she was going to be something different. And she was going to change her life. She went to college, majored in chemistry at Toledo University, where she met my dad. And together they moved out to Colorado, well away from Toledo, Ohio. Had 3 boys almost in succession, and then my sister a couple of years later. But the names give you an indication how they wanted to change their identity. My older brother is Stuart. I'm Kirk. My younger brother is Scott, and my sister is Elizabeth. Definitely not Polish, Russian names. Very much wanted to anglicize their identity and their ability to succeed in society. It was the 50s, obviously post-war, and there was a lot of expectation of mobility and achievement and success, and they were very much into that. And my mother was very much into, she really took care of us in our younger years. She was always there. We were her life. My dad traveled a lot for what he was doing, but we were her life. And it was all very comfortable until adolescence. And then adolescence came along, and the 60s and 70s and the Cultural Revolution that was taking place happened. And she really lost control over the world that was so important to her, and that was taking care of her children. And with that came a lot of tension. Certainly for me, there was a lot of expectation of what I should be and could be and would be. And I very much became in opposition to that. So it was, most of my adult life was kind of a mixed blessing with her. As I said, she had episodes that she may have been bipolar, so it was difficult at times to know whether she was being, I could trust her, could trust where she was coming from and her moods. Mothers, I think, establish the emotional groundwork, if you would, for what we become as adults. And when you have a mother like that, that is sort of fluctuating between something where you you turn to her and look to her for support, and that at other times she's very unpredictable. And so it was challenging. And I reached a point in my 40s where I started calling her Dee Dee because her name was Dolores, and she asked that all the grandkids call her Dee Dee. I referred to her as Dee Dee as well. And it was in part because by calling her Dee Dee, she became more of just a person, not just my mother, not someone who had this kind of specific role defined for her, and my relationship with her was defined by that. I began to relate to her more as another individual who had some issues, had some challenges and the like. But she certainly gave all of us as kids this sense of we needed to be able to be confident in what we were doing, but it needed to be in a way that she felt was in step with the larger society. I did a lot of different things before I decided to go in the ministry. And when I did, you were talking about the stole. My mother said to me, you're going to need some black patent leather shoes or something. And so I was going to go into the Unitarian Universalist ministry. There was this expectation, but it at least gave her something that she could feel was an accomplishment, because I was going to be a lawyer and many other things. So my mother gave me a sense of purpose, I guess, to a certain extent, but there was always the tension. And she did a lot of things in her life. She worked at MoMA, Modern Museum of Art. She worked for the Asia Society in New York. She traveled a lot of places, went on a trek into the Gaza Israeli desert. She was on a boat when out off the shore of Sri Lanka that was attacked by pirates. She was in a car accident in rural India and ended up in a little hospital with her legs wrapped up in banana leaves for weeks. And she just, and she had this sense of courage, though, that I think she instilled that in us without us really knowing it. So she ended up dying from a brain tumor. And it was just very sad to see her losing touch with her ability to be connected with people. And she went very quickly. But I was able to be a part of that process of dying, which meant a lot to me. But I think I still wrestle with coming to terms with what that relationship was all about, because I don't think you can ever not have a relationship with your mother, even if she's gone and you've never had an actual one. That relationship is profound and significant, and one that defines who you are for the rest of your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. Nina.
Well, I doubt my sons would ever call me difficult. I first wrote this back in 2009 for a UU fellowship that I was a member of down in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it's a very different motherhood story than what you've heard already. This is one of those once upon a time stories. Over 60 years ago, I had my first lesson in loss. It was 1959, and my biological mother walked out on her 4 children. I was 6 years old, just finishing the first grade, and my youngest brother was 2, frequently sick enough that he was in and out of the hospital. My father was suddenly left with 4 children, and as head of the art department at Ferris in Big Rapids, Michigan, he had no idea what he was going to do. But this is not a sad story. Have faith in the people who loved us. It was that year that I learned that a mother's love does not necessarily come from one's mother. My Aunt Jackie swooped in and took me back to Indiana with her. My paternal grandmother rode a bus overnight from Chicago to get my little brother and took him home. My oldest brother and sister moved to Raleigh, North Carolina to stay with my aunt and uncle for the summer. The following fall, the 4 of us were reunited with my dad, and we moved in with my grandparents in their rambling home in Crystal Lake, Illinois. We stayed there for the next 2 years. At a family reunion almost 40 years later, my Aunt Jackie told me a story about that Mother's Day back in 1959. My new first grade teacher, Miss Ford, was suddenly faced with an unusual dilemma. What do you do with this ubiquitous Mother's Day making card activity? I know many of you have probably received those from your school-age children. Would this new kid over here fall apart? At that point, I was cutting my hair and cutting holes in my clothes. With thoughtfulness and grace, she modified the card-making exercise and told us to make a card for the woman in our life who is the most important. So I thought about it, and I made a card for my Aunt Jackie. There were actually 4 amazing women who took care of us: my dad's sisters, sister-in-law, and my grandmother. They cushioned us with love, and they salvaged our childhood. I have 2 sons of my own now, and yes, I am a fierce lion. And now I have 2 granddaughters. I'm even more of a lion. I am often rendered breathless by the depth of my love for them, which makes me appreciate the sacrifices that were made on our behalf. And so I honor the women everywhere who took in the lonely child, who dried their tears, who bandaged their wounds, and who chose to love other people's children. Happy Mother's Day.
Today we honor mothers, short mothers, tall mothers, living mothers, mothers gone by. Thank you for your stories. And may your memories feed you.
Ancient mother, I hear you calling. Ancient mother, I hear your song. Ancient mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient mother, I taste your tears.
May there be an offering, may there be a collection to help mother, to help shepherd this community into its future, to help this community of faith to live into its mission. And may we not require 9 months of gestation before we move into our next stages. Stay and I'll hand it right back to you. Thank you for coming. It's good that you're here. It's wonderful that we're able to celebrate this time together and share memories and thoughts of our mothers. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Linda Wood from the Caring Committee, and one of the things our committee does is covenant with the congregation to share and collect joys and concerns of people in our congregational family. You can share these if you have something to share. You can tell somebody on the Caring Committee, you can call the church office, you can write it in this book, this Lifelines Journal, which is usually down on the altar, and during the week it is in the hallway by the lane tags. And on Sunday mornings, if you have something that you don't want to share with everybody, that's something that's in your heart, you can use the pebbles and water that are in the front or back in the back to express what you're feeling. So into this sacred space of hope and love, we bring one concern. This is from Beth Griffin. This week, I'm sorry, that caught me off guard. This week, the United States marked the millionth official death from COVID-19. Beth Griffin asks that we keep all those everywhere who've lost their lives to the pandemic and their loved ones in our thoughts and prayers. And this includes UCR's own David Riley, who died from COVID-19 in October 2020. So thank you, Beth, for reminding us all of this important milestone. All of us have things in our heart that we hold close. So Reverend Walter and I are going to light a candle to represent you.
Thank you.
May our prayers be heard and our hearts be restored.
Join me for a time of prayer and meditation. This morning, we pray for mothers. May they be blessed. May they be blessed for enduring the pain of birth. May they be blessed for their endurance through so many years of care and responsibilities for another human being. May they be blessed for doing the best they could, navigating the tricky terrain of motherhood, guiding without demanding, teaching without smothering, loving with no guarantee of appreciation. May they be blessed for their sacrifices on behalf of another human being. May they be forgiven their inevitable shortcomings of being human. May they know a sense of satisfaction. This morning calls for a very special prayer, an urgent prayer, a prayer for would-be mothers and for those who choose not to give birth despite being pregnant. May they know support for their right to decide if and when to give birth, if and when to commit to motherhood, and under the circumstances of their choosing. May God have mercy. May laws be benign. May others mind their own business. God of all creation, God of morality, God of justice, intervene in this course of our nation into the throes of depravity, the malignance of authoritarianism, the evil of religious and political domination over others. For our country can use all the help available in order to change the course that has been presented to us. And may it be so. And amen.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul.
We have just a couple short announcements, I promise. First thing is watch your email for a ballot. It is coming out May 22nd. You will be able to vote for it during the annual meeting. You can also wait to vote in person on June the 5th if you'd prefer. You can also have someone else from the church vote for you as a proxy. If you need information on that, I'm sure you can contact Sam in the business office. And if you do volunteer work for a social organization, make sure that you contact Heidi Parton or Sam if you want to be eligible for a special donations from you for UUCR next year. And I hope everyone got to see the first of our monthly newsletter, The Anchor, this week. It's beautiful. Went out Friday, and we have paper copies out in the lobby if you're interested. If you need to sign up for it, make sure that you contact Sam, and she'll make sure that you are on the email list. And remember, that's going to be once a month from now on. Finally, we have two racial justice announcements. May 16th at 6:30 p.m. at Melrose Library, there will be a follow-up meeting called What's Next to the Equitable Policing in Roanoke group. And this is to ensure that Roanoke is a community. Make sure that all racial groups are treated equally and fully protected by law enforcement. And finally, last but not least, on May the 10th at 6:30 at Grandin Theater, there will be a showing of The Black Church, which is narrated by Henry Louis Gates, and UUCR is one of the sponsors of those.
This is a quick 30-second closer. Y'all can sing along. You'll know what it is when it starts. It's going to take them longer to get into position than actually sing the song. All right.
sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I got the month of May. I guess you say, what can make me feel this way? My mom, my mom, my mom, talking about my mom. I've got how much honey the bees envy me. I got a sweeter song than the birds in the trees. I guess you'd say, what can make me feel this way? My mom, my mom, my mom, talking about my mom, my mom.
Know that you are blessed. Know that we are blessed because you are here, and you are here because of your mothers. Go into your week in peace.